And now today is a very, very special episode of the podcast because we have an absolute phenomenal athlete and Olympic star joining us this morning. Alex, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yourself, bro?
I'm doing great. I mean, I'm very, very honored to have you on, man. What I can say is you've really done us proud. And I've got to start by saying, man, unfortunately, I know it sucks that we got to do this for a Zoom podcast, not in person, but I hope this is okay for you for the time being.
No, definitely so, bro. Like, I'm more than happy to be on here, and it's a pleasure for you to have me on, so, bro. Thanks.
No problem, man. So before we get into the Olympic stuff there, before we get into your recent fight and your Olympic what you've done in the Olympics so far, I wanted to actually rewind the clocks back a little bit, man, because there's been, I was researching about you, learning about some articles, so I wanted to hear, straight from you. What can you start off by telling me a little bit about your background and how you got involved in boxing?
So I got involved in boxing because my coach, he used to come to our school and do boxing classes. So we did that like once a week for a couple of months, and probably not even that long, maybe about a month and a half. At that time, then it was at like the end of the school year when he started doing it, the last term. So during like the school holidays is when I fully committed and started going to the gym at his house, and pretty much like been with him for the last 8 years and had all my fights on him except for like my international ones is when I joined the Australian team and we get taken over by the head coach. But I'm still with my home coach, Brian Satori, box out of Eureka Club in Mandurah. And I've had probably around 60 fights like that.
Sorry, we lost you there.
Sorry, it's just I got to grab my charger because I know what's going to happen.
That's okay. All right. So apologies, guys. Alex is just going off to grab his charger. But if for those of you who don't know, Alex, he competed recently in the Olympics, and he was one of the youngest Australians to go in, especially for boxing. And lovely. Awesome. Yeah. Back now?
Yeah.
Cool. So you were saying?
Yeah, so I've had all my fights underneath my head coach, and then I've been on the national team since 2016, besides 2018 when the Com Games was on. There wasn't weight category for me to box in, so that was the only time that I didn't represent Australia in the past 5 years.
Oh, so that was why. Because I was researching and said you were missing out on the 2018 games. I was like, what ifs, man? And then it was all because they just did not have your weight category in the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, so out of the, I don't know how many, I think it was like 10 male weight classes, probably, something like that. Oh, no, yeah. And Australia can only nominate 8 out of them 10. So, yeah, so that's how it worked out.
Do you know why it's only 8?
It's something to do with the Commonwealth Games Committee, with how many athletes we're allowed to take across the board of every sport. So that depending on how well your sport does is how many quota spots that you get at the games for the Com Games. So like the weight categories are there. If boxing does well, things like that, we get more spots. So it kind of depends on our success on how we go.
Wow. Okay, so now you competed in the men's flyweight category, which is roughly 48 to 52 kilograms in the Olympics and all. Now, for someone such as yourself, do you have to ever go through some form of like weight cutting, or is that just like a natural weight for you?
No, that's it. I've had to build myself up to it so I can cut the weight. In boxing, you don't really want to be walking around you don't want your fight weight to be your walking weight. It's just like you're giving away a disadvantage. You're at a weight class that's not your natural body weight with like the people that you're going to fight against. So pretty much everyone has a weight cut really, unless you go to like the 81 kilos or the 91s. That's when it gets a bit harder because there's 10 kilos in between and things like that. But I started my boxing career at 52 at flyweight. After I got on the international circuit, I went to light fly, which was 49. Then I got taken out of the Olympics for this game, so I've had to make the adjustment and move back up and put on some weight, so that way, I'm not giving them too much away in size and weight.
I see. So you don't want to be too far from your weight, from your fight weight, so that way you don't have to affect or give away any advantage in terms of the weight cut. That's interesting. And you've always completed at flyweight, or have you ever experimented any other of the weight categories?
So I started my career at flyweight, and then I think probably about a year and a half, I competed at 49, which is light fly. And then straight after that, I went to the featherweight, which was 56 kilos at that point, because I had no domestic bouts in Australia or in Perth, so I started competing at 57. But I was walking around at like 53, 54 at that time, so I just took the fights as I could.
Nice. So you've had a very, very extensive background, and you started at a very, very young age and all that as well. Now, you mentioned that you were training in high school, and at one point did you realize, okay, I'm going to take this seriously? This could be a potential career for me. When was that? When did that happen for you?
Probably like 2000 and after 2016, when I missed out on the last Olympics. So like started taking more serious at that point. Like, I always trained hard. I was always pretty dedicated, but like I didn't ever have long-term goals. It was all like always short-term goals, like this tournament, that tournament. But after 2016, that's when we started looking at long-term goals, like the next games and what benchmark events we have to hit to get there, and how do we develop in between and things like that. So after 2016, it was more like career planning than just like fights in between and what's next type thing.
I see. So roughly, like, could you give me like a time period between you had your first amateur fight all the way up to recently when you had your first Olympic bout? Like, what was the time period between the two?
Just under 8 years, I think 7 years, something like that.
Wow, that's phenomenal, man. Well done. I mean, and thanks. especially someone very young as well. So let's talk about, like, before the Olympic Games. So you secured your spot in the Olympics because of your performance at the 2020 Asia and Oceania Olympic qualification tournament, which was held in Amman, Jordan. I was just hoping you could give us like a little brief rundown of what was that like for you at the qualifiers.
Yeah, it was like pretty much it was a very, very tough tournament. Asia has like the strongest pool for my weight class on a world stage, so I was pretty confident going into that. Like, we did a lot of international camps and things like that. We got messed around a little bit. It was actually meant to be in Wuhan in February or something like that. Then obviously coronavirus hit and it got pushed back 5 weeks, and we ended up going to Jordan and I think I fought Hong Kong, Thailand, and Iran to qualify. So pretty strong nations. And I mixed it with the best of them, and I had a lot of heavy hitters in my weight class. We had like world championship gold medalist and Olympic champion, and then this world silver medalist. So once I qualified through there, I knew that I belonged on the world stage, and I was really keen to get to the games straight after. And obviously the games got postponed, and everything's pretty much had to roll on from there to this year and just fill in the gap between.
Nice. So it sounds like you did a lot of traveling last year amongst the whole pandemic. And like, what was that like for you? Did you guys have to like quarantine at this place, but not quarantine at this place? Like, what was the situation?
So we didn't do any quarantining anywhere. We when was first meant to qualify, when was going to China at the time, to Wuhan. We think we went to India. We did a few weeks in India just beforehand. I was meant to fly from India straight to China. That didn't happen, so we came home for about 2 weeks. I was at my house and training at my home gym. After that, pretty sure we went to Canberra at the AIS, and we did about a week there or a few days, and then we headed into Thailand. And a lot of the other places was it was like the only place that was kind of like COVID safe for us at the time. So we went to Thailand. We did a 2-week training camp there, and then we flew to Amman and competed over 2 weeks. And from there, kind of headed back home, and that's when Australia got pretty serious about the whole coronavirus. And I'm pretty sure we got on the last flight or the last day that we could get into Australia without quarantining. So we kind of was pretty fortunate to miss all that the first time around. But with this whole camp in going into the Olympics and stuff, we've done a lot of like self-isolations in pretty much everywhere we've went. And getting back to Australia, it's just been this 2 weeks, and now we got a case up in Darwin today. So hopefully, cross fingers that nothing happens trying to get back to WA tomorrow. We'll just see where we go.
Oh, you guys had a case in Darwin?
Yeah, so we had one this morning. We're not too sure what it means for our travel back home tomorrow. So we're just kind of, everything's up in the air, and we're crossing fingers that nothing really comes of it. I think Darwin's going into a snap down for 3 days. So maybe I might have to self-isolate back home for 3 days, but just hopefully we get out of here and it's all good.
Well, I mean, hopefully they can let you back. I mean, you're literally done a quarantine for 2 weeks. It's not like you've had any contact with any of the cases or the case or anything like that. So you even came close. So I don't see a reason why they can't let you back in as well, especially since now you've just done everything right. You represented your country. Flew to did you get to choose where you quarantined, by the way? Or did they just put you in a place in Darwin?
We had a choice whether we wanted to go to, I think it was like Sydney or Brisbane or here. It just depended what, I think on the time it was either Brisbane or here. And obviously with everything that's been going on in the eastern states, I was like, I'd rather go to Darwin. So I took this charter flight here. But some other people, because you're meant to leave the village 48 hours after your comp, some people kind of didn't get a choice and just got put on the next flight and ended up where they was.
Well, if you chose to go to Darwin, you made a very, very smart choice, considering all the crazy shit that's happening over east, like all the protests. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm not one who likes to follow the news much, but I think today they had like nearly 500, like 470 something cases, like almost 500, or like it's absolutely unbelievable what's going on in Sydney, where they've also got this lockdown that's been extended, and now I think they're in a statewide lockdown. And then you compare that to over here in Perth, where we're pretty fortunate, we're pretty proactive as well when it comes to the virus. And now, when there was a case that we did have recently, but it was a weak case, but everyone was sort of up in the air about it. And now, but over in Darwin, considering I was recently just there like a couple of weeks ago doing a show, I mean, Darwin's a pretty nice place, man. Was it your first time in Darwin, or have you been there before?
No, I've been here one other time, like back in school, but yeah, I haven't done too much traveling up in Darwin. So yeah.
Hopefully they let you get to see it. Hopefully you get to go back there and see the sights and all that, because it's beautiful there in Darwin. I'm going to give you that. Anyway, so not getting too far on track of stuff. I always wanted to get into the Olympic stuff now, man. So let's talk through your match now. When you got to so when you got to the Olympics, you had to fight Patrick Chinyemba. Hopefully I said his name correctly. Now, going into the fight, I thought you were really well done. You had a great pace. You were picking very clean shots, in my opinion. You know, I think you had a really, really good jab as well. Now, at the end of it, one of the judges actually gave the victory to you, even though the rounds were tight. And I actually firmly agree with him on that one. But even though the 4 remaining judges deemed it to your opponent, and it was a 28-29 winner on the 3 scorecards, I want you to walk me through what was going through your head during the fight.
Yeah, after the kind of the first round, he surprised me a little bit with some of his speed and that. I knew that he was going to be an awkward fighter. I already had some footage that I watched on him, but I had a slow start in my first round. So the second round, you know, I turned it up and turned it on, and I felt like I won that second round very clear as day and night. And yeah, the third round he came out. He was, you know, he wanted it, and I found myself not at the time, but later, towards the end of the round, that I gave up the front foot, and I was on the outside a little bit too much. I did think that I was doing enough, even though my pace dropped off a little bit. So I was a little bit disappointed in myself there because I had a lot more to give. But it was the 2 rounds that I'd lost, they're very, very close. It was what it was, and you know, I think my display in the second round was more my boxing ability, and the other 2 rounds I just let it too close. He started gassing in the second round. I did remember that, and yeah, the referees just kept pulling me up on stupid things and letting him get away with some you know, some other stuff and that, and kind of stopping the tempo of the fight. And when I started having a bit of control, I felt like my shots were a lot cleaner. He threw shots, but they wasn't landing properly. Like, I was catching a lot of them, blocking a lot of them, and sometimes, you know, depending on the judges, they all sit low to the ring and they're all looking up. That they might think that they're landing. I felt a lot more comfortable in there. There was a couple of flurries that he put that pretty much caught them all, but it didn't look that good, and I knew that in the time. I know how amateur judges score fights, and I knew if they throw flurries and things like that they might reward it. And I just I try to make everything that I did was as clean as possible, so they can see what shots are landing and that. And yeah, at the end of the day, I gave the fight to him, and you know, it was a pretty close fight. I think I dropped it a little bit more than he won it, but he gave the gold medalist a very close fight. He lost a 3-2 split, which is very surprising, but he's an awkward fighter, so I'm not as surprised. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very fair analysis to give it. I'll give you that, but the way that you went about it was quite true. I do agree with you about the referee. There was a lot of splitting going on, and there was a lot of talking going on, and I thought there was a bit strange throughout the few rounds and all that. But one thing I can definitely vouch for is that you definitely looked like you were actually having a lot more output. In terms of shots, I could tell the way when you threw a few shots, his head was definitely swinging backwards a little bit more, and then the way also that he would, when he would go for the body shots, he would sort of lunge into it. So I could definitely tell you're doing a lot more damage. And I just believe it's very, very unfortunate. But the other thing is, it's 3 rounds. You know what I mean? That's not really much. 3 rounds. It's so hard to put on a proper display, boxing display, and obviously because it's Olympics and they've got so many people to go through. But one thing I thought that when it comes to boxing, I feel like you kind of need more than 3 rounds. You know, I thought maybe there should have been at least a 5 rounds, or maybe 5 rounds could have been enough, because then it gives you enough time to sort of get comfortable, figure out the game plan, and then understand your opponent's moves, and then you can come back from that. Anyway, that's just my point. That's my third point to say. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you, man. Now, what you've gone through is a really phenomenal experience to go out there, represent your country on a grand stage, at such a young age, man. Like, obviously, it's a phenomenal achievement. But outside of the match itself, what was it like to just go to the Olympics, especially during a pandemic?
Yeah, it was a different experience. Like when we wasn't at a competition venue, the village was just pretty unreal. Like seeing everyone walk around like superstar athletes and that, and it had a very Olympic feel inside the village. But as for like the other parts with like the opening ceremony and not being able to go to watch other people's events and things like that, that was a little bit of a letdown. But it was still a phenomenal experience just to be able to be in the village and rub shoulders with the best athletes in the world.
Yeah, I understand, man. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, by the way, I'm going to admit, you were the first official Olympic athlete that I've ever had on the show. I wanted to also ask, man, like, did you get to see the cardboard beds at all?
Yeah, I had to sleep on the bastards. It was that wasn't comfy. It was not comfortable.
Oh my God. Like, when I saw those things, I was like, what? That can't be real, man. Like, walk me through what it was like. What the hell was this thing? What was it like sleeping on it? Like, did you have to sleep much on it?
Yeah, like the whole time I was there, slept on them, and then the mattress itself was made out of like a recyclable plastic. So it was like, it wasn't, I just described it as like cardboard with bricks on top of it. That's what it felt like sleeping on for the 14 days or however long I was there. It was definitely different. Japan is very they try not to waste anything as they possibly could. Like the whole place was spotless. It was phenomenal how like the Japanese government ran it. And in all honesty, if it was any other country, like the games wouldn't have went ahead. So they just, I take my hat off to them for making it run as well as they did. Like the effort that they put in there, the government and the Japanese people was just unreal. And, it's gave people like me who put like their last 5 years into this, the opportunity to still go and do it and represent their country. So it was just like, it was a phenomenal effort by them. And some of the rooms I was very surprised, like that was kind of half done because they end up selling like all their houses back to the private buyers and things like that. And they still haven't done like any of the finishes and stuff. So I was like, I'm very surprised what they're going to do with them afterwards, because I personally wouldn't buy one of them houses.
Because when I saw one of those things, it's like, surely that's not comfortable to sleep on. And then I thought to myself, like, these are professional. You're with some of the like the top 1% in terms of athletes around the world. And if there's one thing I talk to a lot of athletes and a lot of fighters, is their favorite thing is sleep and how bloody effective sleep can be. And it's incredibly underrated. And I thought, if you're messing with an athlete's sleep by giving them this cardboard bed, that's not very ideal. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you will manage to get through that thing either way. Now, coming back from now, eventually you'll be back in Perth, back in the state, and obviously, hopefully, I'm sure your family is very happy to see you soon. I wanted to ask you, man, now that the Olympics is over, what is next for you, man?
Yeah, that's a question that I've been contemplating for, since I got into quarantine, even after my fight. Where do I go? What do I do from here? I haven't really come up with an answer to it, but I've been back and forth between like, do I get a pro fight by the end of the year? Where do I fight? Who do I fight? Things like that. So I don't know too much just yet, but I would be keen to have a pro fight by the end of the year. So if it happens, it happens. It would be good. But it's a question that I need help from other people. I can contemplate things by myself, but like when it comes down to it, I need to be talking to my home coach, promoters, things like that, the National Sporting Organisation for boxing, and just see what everyone else's plans are. whichever way I choose, whether I stay amateur or have a pro fight and stay amateur or just turn pro. So there's a lot of options out there, but being in quarantine is just hard to be in contact with people at the moment. So hopefully within the next few weeks, I'll have a little bit more of an idea.
Understood, man. Understood. Now, I wanted to ask you, man, you sound like someone who's got a great team behind him. Now, one thing I talk about a lot on the podcast is that even though my favorite thing about fighting is that it's an individual sport, it's an individual like struggle. It's you alone who goes in there, and it's not like it's like not like a team sport where if the team loses, it can fall down to one player. It's not really like that in boxing at all, because it's just you and the opponent in the ring. Now, one thing I always like to ask about when it comes to fighters is, personally myself, I do not believe that anybody can be a self-made man. I always believe that along the way in any journey, you're going to get some form of assistance or some form of help. And it's hard to put a pinpoint on who could be the biggest influence. But if I talked about influential figures in your life, like who comes to mind?
My coach is number one and foremost. Without him, then Olympics would have never been a dream. Boxing wouldn't have been a dream either. So he's been the cornerstone of my whole boxing career. It's when I really do think about it, like the amount of stuff that he's done for me between the start of my boxing career and now, not only in the ring but outside, is just no one would ever be able to match that. My family, my partner, they've all been behind me, and a lot of like my friends and volunteers who've helped me out, raise money, things like that, to get me to competitions that I couldn't afford. And as amateur athletes, our funding isn't that great as boxers, so we have to seek a lot of sponsorship and community help as much as we can. And the amount of support I've had throughout my boxing career is just like ridiculous, that I wouldn't have been able to do it myself if I didn't have the help that I've had over the 8 years that I've been boxing.
Wow, good on you, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, I got to ask, man, just off the top of my head, like, what's the first thing you're going to do once you get back to Perth?
Probably eat takeaway. That's the first thing, because we can't order Uber Eats up here. We can only like order from Coles and Woolworths and things like that. So I haven't had takeaway for ages now. So I'm dying to have some.
Well, what do you think? What's on your mind right now? What food are you thinking about?
Probably like, I don't know, double cheeseburger from McDonald's or something like that. It's just like, yeah, I'm craving it so much. I actually had Macca's on the way, actually at the airport when we came here, but that was the first, takeaway food that I had. I'm not sure since when. Probably like 3 months before that, or 2 months.
Wow, I feel it, man. Considering like all that training, all that work, and then you got to probably like be on point with your nutrition. And then it's funny, yeah, you said that. Like the one thing you think about is just like the simplest pleasure in life, like a $4 or $5 cheeseburger. Like that's awesome, man. But especially also, I can imagine like one of my favorite things I like to talk to when it comes to fighters, they love to go out after the fight, because they cancel so much or plans, they have to miss so much, because fighting's a very selfish sport. Especially when it's like taking up so much of your time. But the best thing about fighters is like those guys, they party hard when the fight's over. But it's good that you actually wanted something so simple such as a cheeseburger, man. That's awesome. Anyway,
yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, man, is on your Instagram, man, you are always putting up like training videos as well. There's always like training footage and photos as well of you with other sparring partners and other boxers. And one thing I just wanted to ask you personally myself, because I'm a strength coach at the UFC gym in Balcata, what do you do specifically for your strength and conditioning?
That's a hard question. I don't know, like nothing too like complicated. Like over the last couple of years, just been like focusing on my weaknesses, which is my leg strength was one of them. So built up a lot of power in my legs. I just small fighter. I need that to, like once your legs go, your arms aren't going to do much. So that was a big part of my training block over the last couple of years. Now that I've got that power in my legs, we've started to, be explosive in the arms and reactionary and things like that. So, it's a lot of deadlifts and squats and then a lot of box jumps and things like that. Hand-eye coordination, stuff like that. It's nothing that's new, but it's something that's helped me a fair bit. So I guess my solution might not be everyone's solution, but everyone has their own things that they need to work on, and I guess it's all going to be the same exercises when you figure out what your weak points are.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So obviously you're someone who's got a very, very grueling schedule, constant training, constant, was it breaking down, trying to get better and better. So obviously in order for you to be on tip-top shape all the time, you must have a very, very strong recovery system implemented. Like, what do you do specifically for recovery?
I do a lot of massage when I'm home. Mm-hmm. And now that I've been away and when I find I go into a camp, I end up training a lot more than I do back home. So a lot more like self massage, do a lot of rolling out and stretching and that there, like a huge amount more, probably like maybe an hour a day or a bit more than that throughout the day, compared to back home where, I'm working a full-time job and things like that. So my time's very much more limited back home to get recovery in, but sleep has always been my biggest one. And I just started taking some supplements at the start of this year from one of my sponsors, Hemp Lab CBD. So once I started to take that at the start of this camp, my sleep, being away from home and not in my bed where which is where I get the best sleep, helps so much. I'm used to a big bed and things like that, and getting in a single bed that's got no mattress topper and stuff, I struggled a fair bit, and that can affect your performance. So once I, started to take the CBD at night, man, I was having great sleeps, and I was flying in the morning on the track and stuff like that. So that helped so much. And what else? We did a lot more physio when I was here. We did a lot of dry needling instead of massage, because massage, it's a little bit more of a turnaround. Damages the muscles a bit over a couple of days. So the dry needling was meant to be able to get it done in the morning if we have anything wrong, but still be able to train hard in the afternoon with, no inflammation through our muscles.
Oh man, that's good to hear that it's a whole CBD, because one thing is I'm really impressed with the CBD oil from Hemp Labs, like how much it's maximize sleep. One thing that's in this culture these days of society is this is hustle culture. We got to wake up early, and if you're running on these people, it's sleep faster. But really, you should be getting 7 to 9 hours a night, roughly. Get 8 hours, I'm good. But when I take that CBD, it's a million times better, and that's what's the best thing about it, is that it takes one of the best forms of recovery and then times 100. That's definitely probably one of the strongest feats I can say. So shout out to Hemp Labs for doing that. Now, man, just a couple more things I just wanted to run you through real quick. Now, obviously what you've done is pretty full on for you now. So I don't want to talk about what's next, but you're 24 now. Come the next Olympics, which I believe will be, is it in France in 3 years now?
Yeah.
Are you hoping to go again back to the Olympics, or are you hoping to maybe focus more on your boxing career and go pro?
I would love to go to another games. feel like there's it's like something that was unfinished business at the last games. I feel like I could have performed better and things like that. But yeah, I'm just unsure at the moment whether if I do turn pro. I doubt that I'll be at the next games, but yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to ask some questions and navigate them waters throughout the next couple of months and see where we end up towards the end of the year. Whether I'm still amateur and gonna just stick to that, because when you turn pro, the level of competition drops off a lot compared to staying amateur, where everyone's world class and no one gets to duck anyone. So when you turn pro, like, they start managing your career a bit more and getting you used to more rounds and things like that. So the level of competition isn't that great at the start. It gets obviously harder the more fights you have, and as you work your way up the world ranking. So I'm just a little bit unsure at the moment. Like, I've had a lot of international experience, so it's not too bad for me. Like, my development, I feel like, can still go further, but yeah, it is what it is. So we'll find out.
Well, whatever you choose to do, man, I'm sure you're going to kill it. That's one thing I can definitely say for sure. In terms of going back to the games, I definitely can see that happening for you, considering now, when a lot of people, sometimes they go to the Olympic Games for like the first time, and going to the Olympic Games is a feat on its own, just regardless of where you place. Just to get there is a massive journey. And then I reckon second time around, if you go back there, you can have a much, much more better experience, because you know what it feels like to be in the Olympic setting of a boxing match. Anyway, man, I just want to finish this up. Just had a client just walk in. Now, I wanted to ask you just to spend the last couple of minutes of the podcast. So just like you to take just ask you a question. If you'd like to take the time is there anybody in particular you want to thank? Anyone you want to extend your gratitude towards?
I'd like to extend my gratitude towards you for having me on as well. And Hemp Lab CBD for hooking us up, because, I really enjoy doing podcasts. I love having conversations with people and things like that. Everyone who's ever supported me, especially on this Olympic journey, it's been one hell of a ride. And there's a lot of people back home that have done, all the groundwork for me, and was still doing a lot of the groundwork when I was away. So, they know who they are, and I appreciate everyone. It's not going to be the last time that I'm going to need their help, and it's not going to be the last time that, everyone sees me on the big stage again. So, yeah, we're probably going to make our way back to some form of some worldwide stage, and yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Awesome, man. Well, Alex, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this podcast, man. It's been an honor. I can proudly say you are the first Olympic athlete that we've ever had on the podcast, so that title is now yours.
Cheers.
And all good. And also, when you get back to Perth, man, I promise you one day we'll do another in-person podcast, especially with my co-host Jack, who is currently at work right now. So we will do one between the three of us. Anyway, other than that, man, thank you very much. You stay safe. All the best. And I'll chat to you soon. I'll see you when you get back, buddy.
Cheers, my man. Catch up.